week's episode of Stardust Crusaders. Whole Horse and Boingo continue their assault on Jotaro and his team. This week's episode was a lot of fun. It was pretty freaking bizarre. Always living up to the name of the series, this week's episode saw the return of Whole Horse and Boingo as they did everything in their power to try and kill Jotaro and his friends. And big shock, it did not go their way and it ended up biting both of them in the ass. One literally in one sense. But let's talk a little bit about Whole Horse. Whole Horse is a character I honestly thought was maybe going to be a little more important and maybe not played for laughs so much. But after this week's episode, he's totally just a goofball character. Because nothing even works out for him, especially because at the beginning of the episode, he basically has Polnareff. He could kill him right there. But instead, he's got him hanging out against a wall with his gun right to his head. And this scene is really funny for a number of reasons. One, honestly, Whole Horse could probably just kill Polnareff and try to run away right there, but he doesn't decide to do it. But the reason the scene is funny is because Polnareff is trying to do everything in his power to warn his friends that, hey guys, Whole Horse is right here, and he's about to shoot me in the freaking head. So he's actually using his tongue to point in that direction. And at first it's just normal, but it gets over the top. He's sweating, snot running down his nose, and even his freaking tongue turns into an arrow, basically saying, guys, right freaking there, help me out! Luckily for Polnareff, it seems like when Whole Horse actually stuck his fingers up his nose, it caused him to get a case of the sneezes. So he ends up sneezing, ends up saving his life. They find Whole Horse, and he ends up making a quick escape. And that brings us to the next part of the episode where things start to get real ridiculous. So, Boingo had this whole prediction that after sticking his fingers up his nose, Jotaro and his friends were going to be just suddenly knocked out and killed. And if you guys remember last week's episode, there was that one ridiculous scene where Whole Horse just walked outside and shot that guy's ear off just so he could take his cab. These guys come back. They're pissed off and they decide to try and find this guy and run him over. They end up running into Jotaro and his friends, they hit a wall, and most of the main characters are knocked out for the most of the episode. Except for Jotaro, who decides to go and look around and investigate a little bit and try to help out his friends. All at the same time, Whole Horse is trying to use Boingo's predictions to try and kill Jotaro. And there's the scene where he actually goes to these two Egyptian-looking Mario brothers who are working on pipes. That's the only reason I consider them the Egyptian Mario brothers. That and they have some fantastic mustaches, but that's beside the point. What happens here is Whole Horse is supposed to shoot into this pipe, and it's supposed to lead out and hit Jotaro right in the face and kill him. That does not end up happening because he's supposed to do it at 12 noon, and according to his watch, that's supposed to work out. But apparently his watch is too fast, he ends up missing the time, and doesn't have his opportunity to end up killing Jotaro and his friends. Oddly enough, the bullets that are still in the air end up flying back and still end up hitting that Jotaro in the face, at least the one in the book, which ends up hitting him point blank, both in both hands, and this one where the bullet actually went throughout the top of his head. And believe it or not, he's alive. He's going to the hospital. He's going to be just fine. In fact, most of the big villains of this arc have basically just retired or gone to the hospital or had all of their bones broken. It's really amazing how goofy a lot of these opponents have been, but I really think that the comedy is going to tone down a little bit more maybe after this episode. Although, after seeing the preview for next week, I don't know if that's going to be possible, especially because it looks like Iggy's going to be going up against another animal stand, which appears to be either a falcon or a hawk. It just looks really awesome. But the final scene of the episode is interesting because basically Boingo decides he's going to give up his life of evil working for Dio, and he and his brother are going to try and use their powers to help people out. He seems like he's going to have a really nice ending when he kicks this box into the air getting ready to walk into the sunset. The problem is that box ends up landing right on top of Iggy's head, and that really pisses him off. You can actually see that in the actual ending credits, which are still animated in the style of Boingo's comic book. Safe to say, this was a pretty ridiculous episode, but it was still a lot of fun. So what's the rundown on this week's episode of Stardust Crusaders? Jeez, man, this second half of the series has not been what I expected, but that doesn't make it bad whatsoever. I've been loving all of Stardust Crusaders because it just manages to be a really funny series and a fun action show all at the same time, wrapped up in some 80s manga style. And that's what I really love about this episode right here. It's really interesting because all the main cast, like the stars, they were really like the side characters this week. This was really the Whole Horse show this week, and I thought he did a lot of really funny things, and there were a lot of tense moments, especially that scene at the beginning. But it's funny how Polnareff and his sneezing actually ended up saving all of them constantly. I mean, of course he actually saved Jotaro inadvertently when he sneezed before those bullets hit his head, but it's just funny how he didn't plan for any of that, and it all started with Whole Horse actually putting his fingers in his nose, so from that point on, he basically screwed them, you know? It would have been probably better if he hadn't put his fingers up his nose and just tried to make a ridiculous escape, but, you know, he couldn't make that call because that's just the way these things work. And also, this is one of those few cases where things actually don't go the way like they do in the book, and I think that's pretty interesting, especially that final bit at the end when it actually ended up hitting the picture and hitting him right in the face. I have no idea how he's alive. But then again, anime logic. That's kind of the mindset you have to go into Stardust Crusaders with, which is anything can and will happen. I mean, it is called Bizarre Adventure. The thing I'm really looking forward to seeing, though, is more of Iggy. You know, as cool as this episode was, I don't feel it needed to be a two-parter. I think they could have maybe somehow put all of this stuff into both episodes, and maybe we could have gotten right to the Iggy action, because I want to learn more about this character, why he's so important, maybe get a backstory for this guy, and it's just going to be really fun to see him use his stand again, because we really haven't seen it in action since his formal introduction. I mean, it's popped up a few times, but I'm really ready to see Iggy contribute to the team in next week's episode, although I still think he's mostly going to be relegated to being just like the always pissed off mascot of the team. On the technical side of things, the artwork, the animation was very clean and consistent this week. I especially love the music cues. I love the theme of Oingo and Boingo. It sort of has that old sci-fi alien sound to it, and it manages to make the scenes really funny every single time they use it. I love it. Otherwise, this was just a very big, slapsticky, action-packed episode, which didn't really move the story too far, but at least we got to see the return of Whole Horse, and maybe we'll get to see him again because he did survive another crazy ordeal. You never know. He might actually be a little more important. So, there it is. That's my thoughts on this week's episode. I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5. Just a really good average episode. I would give it a 4. I just wish a little bit more could have happened. But you should still definitely check out this week's episode if you want some good laughs and to get you pumped up for next week's episode. So JoJo fans, if you're a fan of the anime version or the manga version, check out this week's episode. You might see something you like. Thank you guys for watching my review. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with all your friends. Make sure to tell me what you thought about this week's episode of Stardust Crusaders and what you hope to see from the rest of the anime series. Remember guys, if you have not subscribed to our channel, you can go ahead and do that. That way you can see all of our latest anime and manga reviews. Spring anime season is about to kick into full swing. There's a lot of big shows that are starting tomorrow. The one I'm looking forward to seeing the most is going to be the brand new season of Fate Stay, because I just got done watching that one and it's freaking amazing. I never had an opportunity to review the first season, so I'm definitely going to review this one, and a few other surprises are going to pop up, so make sure and stay tuned to the channel for that. And remember, you can also follow us on social media like Facebook and on Twitter. It's really awesome. Thank you guys again for watching, and as always, stay dandy, baby.